as a guest and kind of learning for you. It's really, really good, and I'll definitely promote it with as many of my colleagues as I possibly can. So, I'm Jeannie Bell. I'm a local councillor for St Helens Metropolitan Borough Council. I'm also the Chair of Licensing, and I'm the Women's Officer for my constituency party. I was asked to come along really to talk about women in politics and the barriers that we face. So, unusually for me, I'm talking about personal experiences and that of my friends rather than other things that I often give talks on really. So it's quite a bit nerve-wracking. I don't talk about myself much. I suppose there's a saying that all of us do when we get to a certain age where we say, you know, oh, if I could go back to school with the knowledge and the experience that I've got now, how different would my life be? Well, there is a way to do that, and that's going back into politics, or going into politics for the first time. I have to say I've worked in some pretty tough environments. I started my career working with mental health offenders, young offenders within secure units, supervising young offenders in the community. Real strong belief in rehabilitation and in, you know, in the fact that people make mistakes and they should be able to move on and have a life after that. So I've done some pretty tough jobs, and I think one of the toughest was working as an FE lecturer with 16 to 18 year olds. There is nothing like facing a classroom full of 16 to 18 year olds to kind of keep you on your toes. But I loved it. I did it for about 5 years and it was absolutely fantastic. And I was actually teaching them politics, which I'll go into a little bit later. But I would say, no matter all that experience that I've got, nothing, and I mean nothing, compared me, or prepared me, I should say, for working in local government. It was a real culture shock. It's an environment where the normal rules of behaviour and professional etiquette are often thrown out of the window and just for good measure driven off a cliff. It's quite a tricky environment to work within, and especially for somebody who's had I have a very varied background. You know, I've worked as cleaners, I've done loads and loads of jobs, but never come across anything like this. So I taught politics to 16 to 18 year olds. Loved it, absolutely loved it. They always started the module kind of sat with their arms crossed like that. Don't want to do it, don't like politics, don't want to be here, not interested, it has no impact on my life, it's not something that I'm interested in. And by the end of the module, I would always have a group of inspiring young people who, given the opportunity to learn about it in a way that they felt was engaging and spoke to them, just were so creative in some of the policy ideas that they came up with, and I absolutely loved it. And it was actually whilst, after I was teaching one of those classes, I was sat down chatting to a few students and they said, you know, you harp on every week about how important it is in part of the democratic process. Why don't you consider standing? Why aren't you out there doing it? But I kind of pondered it and I thought, I don't know if I can, I don't know if I'm the type of person that can do that. I've always been a member of the political party that I'm in, but I just don't know if I'm cut out for that kind of thing. But on the other hand, it would be really good research material for my lessons on the electoral process. So might be worth a shot just in case. So the opportunity came up to stand, and I applied and I was successful. And to my surprise and that of my students and my colleagues, I won. And very quickly found myself in this whole new world that I've never experienced before. The whole process went really quickly. So I started, 1 minute I'm campaigning and I'm kind of out on the streets and I'm doing the local party stuff, and 18 months later I'm elected and the cabinet member for public health and wellbeing. It was quick, really, really quick, and I'll be honest, training is minimal. Guidance is minimal. You have to be able to get in there and run. And that's, I suppose for me, it's also very lonely. Now I have to say at this point, before I go any further, I genuinely believe that people who go into politics do so, no matter what the party, because they feel that they have a voice and they want to make a difference. Might not agree with a lot of what they say, but people genuinely want to make a change. I've, you know, a fairly good kind of relationship with some of my opposition councillors, because even though I disagree with them, I know that they firmly believe in what they're saying, and that they're saying that because they really believe that it's the right thing to do. So, yeah, just to put that out there, I do believe people to go into it for the right reasons, but the problem for women in a political environment is that it is dominated by white older men, and it is categorically, and that can make it difficult to get your voice heard when the majority of the positions that you are working towards and the majority of the leadership positions are held by men who've been in that system for a very long time. You're pivoted into this culture where the ability to advance politically isn't always measured by how capable you are. And again, that's quite a strange experience. You know, I've worked really hard in every job that I've got to try and push myself and to try and advance, and all of a sudden you're in this environment where actually it's about, you know, who do you know, what friends have you got, what relationships have you got, are you making your profile high enough, and all of that was tricky for me, especially given I am quite outspoken, and you know, I'm known for being a little bit gobby, and it has got me in trouble because I struggle to rein it back in a little bit. If I see something that's wrong, I'm quite kind of like, oh no, that's not right, you have to change that, and I have got myself into trouble with it. But what's weird I found is the difference between being involved in a political party and being an activist and becoming an elected member. So I've been to so many women's conferences and women's training sessions, and within my party you feel this real sense of sisterhood, and you're surrounded by these incredible women who make you want to go out and make a difference, and it feels like real bonding and real togetherness. But the reality of that is that when you become an elected member, you are in a minority group of women within an organisation where you are every woman is trying to achieve to the best of their ability, and which is brilliant, and that's what we want to do. But you find yourself naturally put in a position where you are pitted against each other, because the men within the organisation will only open up certain positions or stand aside to let women go for certain positions, and it's generally men who are in control of the leadership positions. So you have groups of women who are really pitted against each other, and rather than having that sisterhood, often it's quite competitive, and women don't support each other as well as we could. It's a culture of distrust and competition and fear. You don't show weakness, because if you show weakness, it is a way for people to kind of get in and get under your skin. If you're too emotional, you're considered to be hysterical. If you are angry or ambitious, you're a bitch and you're terrible, and we don't want that kind of thing. All of which isn't an issue for a lot of the men that I come across and that I work with. And it's a really difficult environment, and as somebody who's quite emotional and passionate, I find it difficult to navigate, and I'm on my second term now, so 5 years, and I'm kind of just now starting to get my head around it, but actually I don't think you should have to. And I think one of the biggest problems that we have is this aggressive environment where you're forced to become something that isn't who you are, and that we don't accept individuality and personal, and we don't accept people who are passionate and will get upset and will be, you know, outspoken, and we should embrace all of that. I think the answer to the problems that I know that I face and a lot of my female colleagues have faced within local government is about preparing women honestly and robustly for public office. So when we are doing women's training events and we are doing women's conferences, it's about saying, do you know what, this is a tough environment, but you can do this, and you can do this because we're going to support you to do it. When you take somebody from that political activist who's quite, you know, inspired and ready to make a difference, and then you put them in that environment, it can be soul destroying. So it's making sure that 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 transition goes well, because it's not just about getting women into politics, it's about keeping them in. And it's about keeping them in long enough to go for those positions and that advancement, so we can change the culture to be a more equal culture in itself. And if you look at the Liverpool City region, every council leader is a man. All of the cabinets in all of the councils are dominated by male voices, and I absolutely know that there are capable female councillors in every single local authority across this region that could do those jobs just as well. You know, and I see them doing amazing work. So I am quite critical of the political environment nationally and locally, and I do believe that at the moment politics isn't a fair game, and that's not just about gender, it's about sexuality, it's about disability, it's about the AME, it's about every minority group being able to access equality of opportunity. And I was asked recently, well, you know, if you're so grumpy about it, why are you staying in it? You know, why don't you just leave? Because all you do is moan. It's not all I do, is moan, but I just want you to know. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a politician. But I genuinely believe that if you see something and you don't challenge that, then you are part of the problem. And that the answer to changing the culture lies with us as women, that we can change this, and we can do it by being more supportive to each other too, in that competitive environment, championing, and it doesn't matter how many times you spoke in public, and it doesn't matter how experienced you are, having a friendly set of eyes, having just somebody smile or nod, puts you straight at ease, because you know that at least one person in the room isn't going to heckle you at some point. So being that face in the room is really important for other women. And it's about being a critical friend. So as women, it's about being able to build relationships with each other as local councillors, where we can sit down and say, do you know what, you weren't on top form with that, or I think you might have missed the mark on that, and be able to hear it, accept it, but still have that supportive relationship. And that's quite difficult in such a competitive environment, but we have to work on it, we do. So having said all of that, like, terrible stuff, what I would say is, I would encourage any woman to get involved in politics, and I genuinely would. It is an incredible opportunity. I feel very privileged that I've been elected to serve my, you know, the town that I grew up in, that my kids went to school in, that I've worked in. You know, it is a privilege, and I am very lucky. And despite all of the political and structural issues, it gives you the opportunity to really help individual people. So when we think about local government, we think about councillors, and we think about, you know, people pointing at dog poo bins and things like that. But actually what you don't hear or see is some of the really good work that local councillors do. You know, I'm working with residents on everything from antisocial behaviour to dog fouling, and spoiler alert, you would not believe how much dog fouling I have to deal with on a weekly basis. It is horrendous. Yeah, so yesterday I went down to, just to give you some examples, yesterday I went down to my local community centre. We're working on a clothes swap scheme for the Year of the Environment, where you can bring clothes and get tokens, and then you can take away clothes for everything that you've got. It's brilliant. It's all about, you know, recycling, reusing clothes. We're also setting up a really good scheme around prom dresses and prom suits, in conjunction, hopefully, get some of the local dry cleaners on board, where people will be able to donate them, and people who may be stopped from going to prom, because some of these dresses are like £2,000. It is unbelievable the money that is spent on them, and it's so prohibited. And in my ward, I've got states that have got 40% unemployment, so it's job centre plus who are going back into work but may not have the income to go out and buy interview clothes, will be able to just come and pick things up that they want to wear that they can use for a job interview, so they feel confident. And when they're walking into that interview, they feel that they've got a right to be there, which they have. So I've done things like supported food banks, work with benefits agencies, community projects, in council and as a portfolio holder. I've done all kinds of work, from we pioneered a co-production model for our new drug and alcohol tendering project, which was just amazing. We did, I introduced outdoor gyms. So proud of myself. Of course, it was all the officers that actually did the work. I just went and had my photo taken, and that's the reality of it as well. So we have these outdoor gyms all across the borough to encourage people to get active in the communities. Really successful project. We've done campaigns on male suicide, mental health, and the first LGBT event in our borough, which I was really proud of. You know, it was fantastic. And I'm not saying all of that to go, oh, look at me, look at what I've done, because actually that is standard fare. That is normal. That is what local councillors do. It's not always seen, and it's not always heard, but that is what we all do, and I'm not doing anything that anybody else isn't. It's been, working in politics has been rewarding. Sometimes I kind of pinch myself. So I'm like, I live in Earlstown in a terraced house. Oh, am I a local councillor? And I think that imposter syndrome is something that a lot of us suffer with. We think, oh, I can't do that. But you can, anybody can do it, and actually the more people that we have within politics from a working class background who are from their own communities, the better, and that's why we need to mobilise women. I've learned a lot about myself. I've made some horrendous mistakes. I've laughed, I've cried, and I've celebrated, and I've definitely commiserated. But one thing I can really say that I have learned is that you can fight and challenge